Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 8 of the Moving Forward podcast. Joined again by Sean. This is a Friday edition of the show. Usually it's on Thursday, pushed it to Friday this week. So you can have this episode if you're going anywhere, traveling anywhere for the 4th of July, can pop this in and listen to some NBA talk. We had a few things happen this week. The Suns have moved on to the NBA Finals. They will be going to the NBA Finals for the first time since the 1990s when they were taken by Charles Barkley. And then we've had the most boring series I think I've ever watched. That's a conference finals between the Bucks and the Hawks. Sean, do you want to just tee off real quick about how stupid the Bucks and the Hawks series is without Giannis or Trae?
Yeah, it's just if you look back in like the history of the NBA, the conference finals has some of the greatest games in NBA history. Particularly going way back to the 80s, like the Larry Bird and Isaiah Thomas games. More recently, like the Pacers and Heat, like the Celtics and Heat with LeBron and those teams. Like usually you get a lot of entertainment value from the conference finals. But last night I found myself watching Brook Lopez be the front of attention and the star player, and Chris Middleton and Bojan Bogdanovic. It feels like a regular season, middle of the season NBA game more than a conference final intensity. I mean, it still like has a lot of implications, but man, it just really sucks watching without Giannis and Trae.
Yeah, especially the Hawks. Like, I don't know. There's some stuff on the Bucks team that I like. I do like Chris Middleton. I think he's fun to watch occasionally. And for some reason, I don't know how, like, I've swung the motion of like, remember a couple years ago when the Knicks signed Bobby Portis to that awful contract and they had like
Yeah,
five power forwards. Like I went from like hating Bobby Portis because I thought he was annoying to like him probably being my favorite player on the Bucks for some reason, just because I think like I want him to play like more than Pat Connaughton. And I can't believe it took a Giannis Antetokounmpo knee injury to realize that, hey, we should play Bobby Portis as our best bench player, not Pat Connaughton. So
no,
that's
I
been the
agree.
one positive. But the Hawks are super boring without Trae. Their offense seems so stale. They really don't have another point guard on this roster. They signed Chris Dunn for defensive purposes, but then they also thought, hey, let's sign Rondo. Okay, you signed Rondo after his big playoffs last year. They trade Rondo halfway through the season, so now their option, like as a facilitator, is Lou Williams. Like Lou Williams can go out
Yeah,
there and get you a bucket and he's a good ISO player. But as far as like running an offense, Lou Williams is atrocious at it. And like Clint Capella, ever since, I think it really just shows how like Clint Capella to be good has to have like a player like James Harden on the Rockets or Trae Young. And he's just been bad the rest of the series. And he's getting destroyed by Brook Lopez,
hmm
all-time
no,
leader in Nets points per
I've been
game.
seeing the same thing. Like, it makes me wonder a little bit more about that Rondo trade. Like, it doesn't really make too much sense hindsight because he would have been the perfect backup point guard, like in my opinion, for this Hawks team with that playoff experience. But yeah, like you said, Lou Williams is just awful to watch him try to facilitate an offense. He's just a bucket getter. He's perfect for when everything's going smoothly, and I think that's just a theme with this Hawks team. It needs all of the right pieces in place in order to function properly. And we've seen once Trey went down, this team just looks sporadic. And they did win without Trey that one game, but it was more like off of their toughness. But that is one thing we have to say about the Hawks. They are tough and they're resilient, and they've showed that the whole entire playoffs. And yeah, I mean, it'd be smart to write them off right now, I guess, without Trey. But I don't know. Every time I feel like I've thought that this playoffs, they've come back and like proved everyone wrong. So I don't know if you think about that, but that's just what I've seen from them.
No, I 100% agree. I think it's like to the point where it's hard for like a team without their star player to string together like two really good games in a row. Like we
Hmm.
saw it with the Hawks in game 4, like they had a great game and then they underperformed in game 5. And like with the Bucks, I feel like I can't just say like definitively like yeah, they're going to win this series because what if they have another game like they did in game 4 where they were just really bad. So, I don't
Yeah.
know. For me it's like in football, it's like, you know how it's like the next man up, like you have an injury and a team can still be good.
Right.
like it's the next man up. Like that Hawks team, this Hawks team doesn't have that. Like they have to, like you said, it's like a gear. Like they have to have every single gear
Mhm.
in place for this machine to be able to move. And when you lose the biggest gear, which is Trae Young, and it falls out, you can try to stuff a bunch of small ones in there to try to make it work, but it's just not going
Mhm.
to work. So
Yeah, and it just looks ugly and just yeah. No, I know exactly what you're saying because
no,
this has been a very hard series to watch, and like it's felt we both love basketball, but like I find myself like not even like looking forward to this game without either Giannis or Trey. But yeah, that's just the NBA in general. We're used to like conference finals marquee matchups. Like I said earlier, like I don't know. Like it stinks. Hopefully Giannis gets healthy or Trey gets healthy for the finals, depending on who makes it. But yeah, I don't know if I can watch much more of Brooke Lopez and Chris Middleton and Bojan Bogdanovic being the stars of the show.
100% agree. Speaking of
Yeah.
the finals, there is a team that has cemented themselves in the NBA finals. That is the Phoenix Suns. I've had a long love-hate relationship with Chris Paul for the longest time. Like I loved him on Lob City. I thought he was great. And then he was on Houston with Harden, and I didn't really like Harden. So I'm like, I don't like Chris Paul. And now he's on the Suns, and I'm like, I like Chris Paul again, but he does all the flopping. So it's like, I don't know. Chris Paul, I have a love-hate thing with him, but at the same time, I'm just super happy for the guy. Like he deserves to make the NBA finals, and it's about damn time that he did. And I've never thought that he's like a reason why a team hasn't made a conference finals, but it does always seems like he gets hurt at the worst time. So when the whole like COVID thing happened with him, I just like thought to myself, like, here we go again. Like if Chris Paul, something's happening in the playoffs, which is going to prevent him from moving into like the NBA finals. So I'm just really
Yeah.
happy for Chris Paul, but especially Devin Booker, who is like, I think maybe if not one with Tatum, then number two of the best player under 25.
Oh, I completely agree. And there's a lot of stuff to like a lot of things to unpack with this Sun series. Like we've seen how well constructed the team was for when CP3 was out those first two games. They still like were a functioning conference finals level team and they took out the Clippers in two close games. That just can speaks to it actually speaks to like the level of competency James Jones has as a GM. He built this great team and just speaks to the resilience. And you can see like DeAndre Ayton he stepped up when Chris Paul was out. And but the bottom line is, I feel like all of this flows through Chris Paul. Like he took this team to another level. He took DeAndre Ayton to the other level. Devin Booker was going to get to the other level, like you said. I feel like he's one of the top players under 25 as well. But I feel like the Chris Paul factor just you've seen it a bunch of other teams. He just comes in and changes franchises. And like you said, I'm just happy. I don't know. I don't even know if I like Chris Paul, but I know I'm happy to see him make a finals because I feel like he just deserves to.
Yeah,
And
I 100% agree. Sorry to cut you off, but
no,
like
you're good.
there's nothing better in basketball. Like I feel like basketball is the best example of this cuz like when a guy is hot in like other sports, like you can have like a great game with like a running back and you just give him the ball over and over again, but
Hmm.
still like those runs are like far and in between. Like in basketball, there's nothing better than when a player just gets hot. In that
Oh
second
yeah.
half of Chris Paul scoring 31 in that second half, where it just felt like if he was shooting the ball, he wasn't missing. That's the best thing to watch in basketball. When it's a guy like Chris Paul who's not really known for like his scoring takeovers, like sure Chris Paul puts up points, but it's like a little maybe over 20 points or like high 20s is like a great game for Chris Paul scoring wise. He's usually him passing the ball. But when Chris Paul drops a 41-point game and like it's just like every shot he's taking is going in, and the way that he like maneuvers around defenses and through screens and just like you hardly ever hear about Chris Paul hitting threes, and I think he hit 5 of them in that game. But watching
Hmm.
Chris Paul in that game, I'm like, all right, like this is his moment. This is Chris Paul's time. Like everyone else can step back, but yeah,
Yeah. No, but what we saw from Chris Paul was he knows when to step up. Like you said before, he's not known for his scoring because he knows that him scoring 40 points a game, which I believe he could, well not 40 points a game, but you know what I mean, like high level scoring like that. He knows that that's not his role. His role is to be the playmaker, the floor general. But we saw in this game that he saw an opportunity. He's like, I'm gonna go out and win this game, and he did. And I just think that's what great players do. And I think Chris Paul's an all-time great player. And I want to throw a question to you on this one. Do you think CP3 has overtaken Isaiah Thomas as the second best point guard of all time if he wins this finals?
Second best, he's not the second best because the first best is Magic Johnson. The second best is Steph Curry. Third
Mm,
best point guard. If he wins the finals, yes. If he wins the finals, yes. It's hard to admit because Isaiah Thomas is like a Detroit guy and he won back-to-back titles, like, and he was beating those, he defeated the Celtics, he ended the Celtics, and then he won one from Jordan and like took it in the 90s, and he beat the Lakers and he beat all these like really, really great players. But I don't know, it might be just for me like the Chris Paul story, like the way he's taken his lumps and he's finally like gotten through all this like crap, and he's always been under recognized and underappreciated, and now people are starting to give him a shine. Maybe in like 5 years, if you ask me, I'll think it's like Isaiah Thomas, but in the spur of the moment right now, I think like if Chris Paul wins, I think Chris Paul is the third best point guard ever.
yeah, I was thinking about this question earlier. I did a little bit of research. Statistically, he's better than Isaiah Thomas in almost every like stat category. Like points, I think they're 1 point off. And overall, he's already played more years than Isaiah Thomas. He's shown the longevity. And I think him going into his 15th year and maintaining the same skill level and making his first finals is just something to marvel at. And yeah, I mean, I love my hometown boy. His name is Isaiah Thomas, but yeah, I think it's kind of hard to argue, especially if he wins this finals at this point.
Yeah, and you just have to think compared to like even the 1990s, like I named all those names, but like that was the end of the Celtics. Like they weren't that great, and it wasn't like Jordan's time yet. The NBA star power now compared to the NBA star power in the 90s, like the names might not be like as big, but the list of good players in the NBA now is definitely like 1,000 times better than the list
Mm.
of the players in the 90s.
Well,
Like really good players in the 90s, but like at the same time, like just like from top to bottom, every NBA player is better now than they were then.
yeah. Well, I mean that might be a bigger debate for another day, but yeah, I agree to you to a certain extent. You can't really diminish what Isaiah Thomas did because of the talent level, and like he's one of the few guys like under 6'2" that led a championship team while being the best player, and he's had some like out crazy like historical NBA Finals moments, scoring 27 in the fourth quarter with hobbled ankle, like or in the third quarter. That's one of the craziest things I've ever seen, but. Yeah, I mean, CP3's battled his own demons, so I think like he's earned this spot above Isaiah Thomas. But yeah, it's hard to argue anymore.
Yeah. Well, let's just focus on the Clippers side of things real quick. First of all, did you
Okay.
watch the craziest the Steve Ballmer video? Like the things
Yeah.
that didn't actually happen in the game have been getting more like news publicly after the game's over than the actual like clips from the game itself. Like people are talking about like Chris Paul and like his everything outside of just that one game. Like they're talking about like his legacy and everything, like we are. But then like the other two big videos is obviously the Patrick Beverly shoving video. We'll get to that later. And the Steve Ballmer video. Like, is that what Steve Ballmer just like? It obviously he's like, hey guys, come sit with me at the game, and the guys are like, yeah, sure, Steve, we'll love to join you at the Clippers game. That'd be awesome. Little did they know that they were going to get attacked by
Yeah.
Steve Ballmer.
So I was wondering if we were gonna start the show off with this because that was one of the most outrageous clips I've ever seen from an NBA game. Like he full on physically assaulted his two friends, like straight nut shot first off, and then just the drag down the leg. I didn't know what I was watching at one point. One of the most outrageous things I've seen.
I thought that the NBA and ESPN was gonna have to like cut to a black screen and just be
Yeah.
like, "We're sorry for the like somebody didn't like pop in from like Sports Center and like we're sorry for what you had to see there. That we did not expect this." Like
No.
I know he's like one of the most like he has the best like he's a really good owner. Like he's pumped about his team. He cares if they win, and he shows a lot of energy. He has a lot of energy and passion,
Oh yeah, he does. You can
but
tell.
it was directed in the wrong way that
Oh
time.
yeah.
Like that's a
It was a weird type. That was not the type of passion that goes into rooting for a team. That was a intense, burning passion he had for his two fellow seatmates. But yeah, I'm blown away. Like, good for those guys. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's what you have to do to get courtside seats next to a Microsoft CEO. Like, maybe we're
yeah.
doing the wrong things.
I mean, like if that offer presents itself ever in the future of like a Pistons like courtside game, but it's just like Tom Gores saying like, "Hey, just let you know, there's like a 95% chance of a big play happens. I'm punching you in the balls and like grabbing your leg really intensely." I'll be like, "You know what, Tom? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay." I'm
I think
in.
we should be actually Tom Gore. If you're listening, I hope you are. We and Jake will volunteer to be that guy for you. If you want to get to
100%.
that level of Steve Ballmer, we will sit right next to you and take those nut shots if we can watch Cade Cunningham play on floor side seats.
Okay, yes, that is a deal. Tom Gores, the ball is your court. Okay, so Sean had a really great idea that I've really liked that we're going to do every single week. We'll do one thing we really liked from the NBA, one thing we didn't really like. This was a great idea, Sean. And so I'll go first. We'll do the things we liked first, then the things we didn't like second. The things I really liked this week, my one thing is Sadiq and Isaiah Stewart being on this USA team, like this practice, like this under 25 team or whatever this USA
Yeah,
Select. That's what it is.
yeah, it's
USA
select team.
Select. And they get to go. Okay, so these two guys, after a rookie year, a lot of young players are on this team usually. This is basically like the practice team that the Olympics team gets ready for. But they're going to get to go out to Vegas with Jeremy Grant as well, and they're going to continue to get better and better. And I just love that. Like, I love that they were selected. Like, they're going to get this opportunity to go out there and play against some of the best players in the NBA for like I think it's 2 weeks in Vegas while the
Yeah,
USA prepares. And they're going to need to practice every single day. They're going to get to learn from all these like high level NBA players and everything like that. Like, I think if Isaiah Stewart could just like sit there and listen to Draymond Green talk and Bam Adebayo and all those guys, and if Sadiq can just sit there and listen to like um, I think Chris Middleton plans on being on the team, like Chris Middleton
yeah,
later on, that kind of thing. Like, I just feel like that's really, really great. And I love that these two guys were like get this opportunity to be able to go do that because I think this really helps their development. Anthony Davis always talks about how that 2012 team really helped his development. Obviously, none of these players at Anthony Davis's level, but like it can do great things for a player's development to be able to be around this many great players, practicing and learning from them.
yeah. I mean, just being in the same vicinity as these guys will help them, even if they don't get too close with them, which I'd imagine they will. But even just like looking at their tendencies, seeing what they do and they work on their skill, like this can only help them. And I was super glad to see our boy Beef Stew get selected. I was worried about his disrespect, but yeah, no, I'm glad he's getting his recognition and he's on the team. Like Sadiq, I thought was a penciled in player, but yeah, him and Isaiah is just a dream for Pistons. And yeah, I agree with you completely. They're going to develop a lot this summer and a lot more than a lot of other Pistons rookies have in the past 13 some odd years.
100%
Yeah.
agree. I'm happy for them, and I can't wait to see what they can do next season and hope that they
Yeah.
learn a lot. Sean, your good thing?
All right. So a thing I like, I'll stay on the Pistons train. I like Troy Weaver on the radio. So some of you may have seen it. He was on Sirius XM. I don't know what show it was, but they're asking about Cade Cunningham, and he said Cade is a number one pick that everyone would covet, and that he really likes how much of a competitor he is and his intangibles. And he really made it seem like he is the number one pick and his favorite prospect. So personally, this is a giant sigh of relief for myself because I've seen a lot of rumor mills swirling about Pistons trading the pick and whatever. Like it kills me inside, but yeah, this really calmed me down. So I really like to hear Troy Weaver on the radio.
Yeah, I've had a fascination. Like YouTube just knows what I like at this point because like I get Troy Weaver recommendations like Troy Weaver on the radio, this and that. I saw that. I listened
Hmm.
to it too. And it's like literally like Cunningham doing like a shoe shopping video or something. He was on something or other. And
Oh yeah.
I'm like, just give me Cade content. Just like
Oh
tell
yeah.
me about Cade and how he wants to be a Piston and how we want to draft him. And I'm like, it was a big sigh of relief. Like I'm just so afraid, like with 27 days until the draft, like they're gonna find a way to mess it up. But it just seems like they have their head on straight. Like obviously it's like smoke screens, but you don't really need to do that with the number one overall pick most of the time. Like if you're like 3 or 4 and you're trying to throw like the first two teams off your scent, that makes sense. But in the NBA, you have the number one pick. I think most people would say it's consensus number one pick. So I'm just happy the Pistons aren't screwing it up.
Yeah, no, like you said, there's just been way too much like chatter about them trading or like not picking Cade for me to feel comfortable. So yeah, this calmed me down a lot. But for my second thing I liked, I'm gonna go off about Patrick Beverly getting publicly shamed. So we all saw him just shove CP3 at the end of that game. Super cheap shot, and just watching Patrick Beverly the whole series was just infuriating, honestly. Like he deserved to get publicly shamed for that, and Yeah, it was a long time coming, and this is coming from a guy that I used to like Patrick Beverly. I liked how hard he played. Like, I thought all these tactics were just like ways to like get the edge on opponents for a guy that's undersized and maybe unathletic. But yeah, he deserved this, and that was like one of the cheapest things I've seen in the game in a while.
Yeah, I agree. For a guy who claims to be such like a tough guy and such like a hard-nosed player and like a guy who wants the smoke, like he wants all like bring it at me, like
Hmm.
to go and push somebody in their back, like if you're gonna fight somebody, at least do it face to face.
Yeah.
Like to take a cheap shot on a dude, and I get that your emotions got the best of you. Like I saw his tweet afterwards, and like I know he's a really strong competitor. I've always hated Patrick Beverly. I can't stand him, but like ever since he said that thing, like the thing that did it for me was the Steph thing, saying that this is going to be my league in the next 5 years or whatever that he said to Steph. Like, like how? Like what? Like that
Yeah.
is so stupid. That's what made me say to myself, like, okay, you're just delusional. Like you don't even know, like you don't even know what you're doing. Like I
Well,
get what
yeah.
you're trying to do,
Like you said. Oh,
but
sorry. Keep going.
no, go ahead. Yeah, I get what he's trying to do, but like at the same time, like that's just too far gone. But he deserves to be publicly like that was a cheap ass thing to do. He's done some other cheap things that come up, like the Westbrook injury to his knee, and he's always had a thing with Westbrook. And I'm not the biggest Westbrook guy, but I thought it was cheap. So I just think he's a cheap shot guy, and I've never really liked him. He's a dog, which you got to respect, but he's also a dirty player at the same time.
Hmm. No, I think he hit the nail on the head when he says delusional because, yeah, like you said, like if you're gonna be like that tough guy that like doesn't back down from a challenge, and then you do the I'm a frat guy at a bar and you turn around and I shove you type of thing, like that's just the weakest thing you can do. And yeah, I mean all that like I'm gonna get in your face, I'm gonna be grabbing you all the time, like he's always in every scuffle, like yeah, that goes out the window when you push a guy from behind. So yeah, it was good to see him get properly shamed.
Yep. Good for him to get properly shamed. We're now moving on to the bad things in the NBA this week. So there wasn't a whole lot of bad stuff that I didn't like about the NBA this week. Not that much. It's been kind of a calm week. I think it'll pick up more towards free agency when we start to hear about it more than. But one of the things that I didn't like was missing games. So I missed this game yesterday. I didn't even get a chance to watch it. We talked about it before the game, but I missed the game because I had to go to a party that has it was a prom through the decades was the theme of the party. And they don't it was at it was at a bunch of girls house, and they don't have a TV, so I'm just updating it on my phone, like looking at it, and I watched like the highlights where it scores every single bucket this morning. But I'm just like I'm sitting there and I'm just like, what am I doing dressed as a man from the 1970s pretending like I'm going to prom? Like, can I ask why, like, themes are fun, but why is it two themes on top of each other? Like decades
The double theme
slash
was a surprise
prom.
to me. I've
Yeah.
never heard the double theme, and it's always the worst situation when there's a big game on and you can't watch it,
And you're the only
and
person
you're
who
in,
cares. We are the only
yeah,
person who cares for some reason.
and on top of all that, you're in a ridiculous costume. So, yeah, I feel your pain on that one. I had a similar plight where I was just around. It wasn't as bad, but I was around family and didn't really have the time to watch the games. But yeah, it's really a helpless feeling when you're just sitting there with no options to watch an NBA game that you've been looking forward to all day.
Yeah. It was a shame, like, but at least like you said, the positive out of it is it was fun, surprisingly enough,
There you
and
go.
that the game is just boring and those teams are boring. So
Yeah.
maybe my girlfriend did me a favor by asking me to go to a party where I didn't have to watch Brooke Lopez put up 33 points and be the best player on the court.
You missed a Brooke Lopez legacy game though, so
Yeah, well,
I don't know. Well,
greatest
that's a debate.
debate question to you, is he the greatest net of all time?
Oh yeah, he's the leading scorer of all time in the Nets. So yeah,
Yeah. Okay. What's your bad
Brooke.
thing?
Wait, one second. Brooke Lopez number one, KD number two, Jason Kidd number three. That's my Nets rankings off the top of my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I do a different Nets ratings. I have New Jersey Nets and then Brooklyn Nets, so I have two different lists.
Okay.
But
Yeah. Let's just agree that Brooke Lopez is the best out of
but
both of
either
those.
way, Brooke Lopez is the best of the New Jersey and the Brooklyn Nets.
100%.
Okay.
But all right. So the one thing I hated was the foul reviews at the end of the game. And let me tell you, the NBA needs to figure this out, and Adam Silver needs to step up because it's getting ridiculous. The last 2 minutes of the game is becoming a 30 to 40-minute extravaganza, and they're reviewing every little thing, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. Like sometimes they're choosing to review fouls, sometimes they're not, like they did in the Phoenix and Clippers game. Like it doesn't make any sense to me. Like the refs are just on a whim, just like, all right, let's review it, and then let's throw it to Steve Javie to give his 2 cents, and he says nothing. The whole broadcast is a mess, and I'm watching the same review over and over again. Like it's ridiculous. I'm just sick of it. They need to figure something out.
I agree that they need to figure it out, but my favorite thing, like my favorite niche NBA thing, is when they say, "Let's kick it over to Steve Javie in New Caucus, New Jersey," and I'm like, "Secaucus," and I just like scream it for some reason. I'm like, "Secaucus, New Jersey,
Steve Javie's
Javie."
been stuck in Secaucus, New Jersey for the last 10 years in that little control room they have him locked in.
I think he's a robot that they just showed the upper half of. But
Honestly.
no, they need to figure it out. They need to like, and it doesn't help that the players are prompting it too. Like every single time anything happens, it's an immediate, like they just put their hands in the air yelling that it needs to be a review. If I think that each team, like you know how you get your one challenge in the game, I think
Yeah.
that the challenge should only be used or only can be used for the first 46 minutes of the game. So you can challenge anything before that, and then in the last 2 minutes, you get 2 reviews that you get to select if you want to review it. And you stick with the call on the court. If it's like, say, in that Cameron Payne play from 2 games ago where
Oh
Patrick
yeah.
Beverly knocked it out of bounds, but technically it hit Payne's hand last.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
if that's one of the reviews you want to use, go ahead. But like 99 times out of 10, like on a play like that, you just think, oh, Patrick Beverly knocked it out of bounds. Like they're just screaming review to get review. But I agree, it's
Yeah.
taking way too long. It's killing the flow to games at the end of games. And I think they definitely need to figure it out. And I think the NBA is a pretty like hip and like willing to change league. So I wouldn't be surprised if they find a way to figure it out after the season ends.
Yeah. I have two alternatives. One, go back to the classic like possession arrow. Just like if it's a close call, whoever's got the possession arrow, just go to them. I mean, I don't think people would be too mad about that. Like as basketball fans, as hoopers, like when you're playing a pickup basketball game and you do like the ball don't lie type of thing, like no one's gonna get mad because it's
Should
kind of
you
like, wait,
idea?
what's up? Yeah,
Sorry,
no,
idea.
no, go
What
ahead.
if it's like pick up hoops and you just have like the guy who made the call shoot a three for it, and if you miss,
Yes,
other team gets it.
that was gonna be my second idea. Just
Oh,
do that.
okay,
This is
yeah,
the perfect. That's the perfect thing. Like,
I love that.
yeah, all the
The other,
guys
the
grew up
other,
playing it. Yeah.
the other team gets to pick the shooter on the court. So
Oh,
say like Rudy Gobert is out there in the final 2 minutes, and the Nuggets are just like, we pick Gobert to shoot the shot to see if you get the ball, and Gobert has to step out there and just try to wet a three to win
well, he's
the
gonna brick it
call.
though. Well, I think yes, you're onto something because that'd be hilarious to watch that. But I think this should be the classic, like whoever's involved, like just say
So like
Patrick Beverly
like a
campaign
jump
type of
ball kind
thing.
of thing, like the 2 closest
Yeah,
players.
no, no, two closest players, or make it hilarious and just have the centers have a shoot off or something like that. Two
That might
centers
also
play
go
a
longer.
game of lightning.
Would you it's just Andre Drummond versus Rudy Gobert playing Lightning running
God,
around?
see,
That
that's
might be
content
better.
right there. Like,
Yeah.
these are
I,
free ideas, Adam Silver. Also a frequent listener, I assume.
oh yes, of course. Very frequent listener. But
Yeah.
I agree. We have to find a way to shorten these games because they're going way too long,
Mhm.
especially at the end. Like you
Yeah.
don't want to become baseball where it's just like a 4 hour thing.
Yeah, and NBA is losing viewership as it is. So like this is just adding on top of it and just making the product tough to watch. And it's such a good product. It's kind of, yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of tough to watch, but
I agree. Just like like the flow of the game is the most important part of the game with like runs and everything. But when you're stopping every 30 seconds to look at something, and sometimes they're looking at 2 things in one possession, like it just has to be changed. 100% agree. Got it.
yeah.
I think they'll figure it out this offseason.
Mhm.
I think enough people have complained about it on Twitter and been vocal about it that I think they'll try to make a fix somehow.
Yeah. Come on, Adam. Get off
Yep.
your ass.
Come on, Adam. But moving forward, we are going to do now our draft preparation. If you remember, we talked about how Cade was the consensus easy #1 pick last Thursday. And on Tuesday, I continued that trend and talked about the Rockets and how I think that the Evan Mobley is probably the best player, but for me, the best fit for that Rockets team was probably Jalen Suggs. That was actually a pretty fun spin on it that I had, that I thought Suggs would be the best fit for that team because John Wall is getting older, you can take in, and I don't think the Christian Wood, Evan Mobley together thing would work. So that was my take on it. But today we're going to be talking about the Cavaliers and the Raptors. Sean, you'll take it away on the Cavaliers, and I'll do the Raptors after that. So, Sean, with the number 3 pick in this NBA draft, you would have the Cleveland Cavaliers select who?
So mine's contingent. I think Cleveland's in a win-win situation, honestly. I think whoever the Rockets pick at 2, the third pick is either going to be Mobley or Green because I feel like it's going to be Cade, Mobley, and Green in the top 3. And I think Cleveland would benefit a lot from Mobley or Green. So I think the Rockets are going to end up picking Mobley, in my opinion. I don't know if it's the best fit or not, but I think they're going to go for talent. So if the Cleveland gets Jalen Green, that'll fit perfectly into their system right now and their team because they got their guards, Garland, Sexton. They're good. They got their center, Jared Allen. They got Larry Nance. Like, not great pieces, obviously. But the one thing they're missing is that dynamic wing. I mean, they have Isaac Okoro, but he's more of a defensive center player, and he's a good pickup. But they would really benefit from a wing scorer like Jalen Green. So ideally, I think Cleveland would really.
Oh, no. I think Sean? Uh-oh.
Rim protector, great defensive
Oh,
player.
you
Then
lagged
they
out
got.
there for a second, so I
Oh,
couldn't
did
hear
I?
what you said. Yeah, no, you're good. It might have been on my end, so my bad.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Back to it. But yeah, I got Jared Allen, and then I got Evan Mobley as my back card. Like, that's a brick wall right there. They're gonna defend the rim. They're gonna be good. So I don't know. I feel like Cleveland's in the perfect situation. I feel like Green or Mobley would be perfect.
I agree. I think that Mobley could probably play the 4 if I'm 100% honest with you, and I think
Yeah.
Mobley and Jared Allen next to each other would be defensively absolutely awesome. But I'm looking at their team, and I think that there's been so many rumors about a Colin Sexton trade because he has this really, really small contract that you can move. And if you could move off of Sexton with the Kevin Love, I don't know if you still want to bring Kevin Love back because he's got 31, $28 million after that. So it's really tough. But I've heard a lot of people say like move Sexton. And if you could move Sexton for like a Ben Simmons, I know that was this like a thing that a lot of people talked about. But I really think Jalen Green is such a good like fit there if they can
Yeah.
get it. Like I don't think Garland's like the best thing ever, but like we've obviously seen that Colin Sexton cannot play point guard. We know that for sure.
No.
But I would prefer the fit with Cleveland if somehow they could get Jalen Green and then move Colin Sexton for somehow another piece that's like a wing, like a Ben Simmons or something like that. I'd have to think of other like trades that they could do, but I think Jalen Green's a pretty good selection for them because I don't think Mobley falls from 2 to 3.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is contingent, like you said, with like what they do with Sexton. I don't know if they can move off of Love unless they just buy him out and just get rid of him and just eat the money. So I think Kevin Love, I don't know if he's gonna come back. He just seemed really unhappy anyway there. So they'll just see what they do in the offseason. But yeah, I think they're in a win-win situation. They can even take Suggs in that spot. Like if you don't believe in Garland as much and you want to move on from Sexton, let's just have Suggs run our offense. Like he's gonna be a facilitator. He's gonna get everyone involved. So yeah, but I feel like Jalen Green is the dream pick for them, and yeah, he would really change that team around.
Yeah, for sure. They don't have the only thing about the Kevin Love is I don't think they can like really eat his salary like they did with Andre Drummond when they bought Drummond out. Because
Yeah.
Drummond, you have to pay $28 million still. You're still paying him that. And then if you bought out Kevin Love's contract, that's 31 million and then 28 million. You'd have to pay him the 31 million for the rest of next year and then another 28 million dollars or find some kind of like middle ground deal like the Pistons did with Blake where they only have to play like a lump sum and they're just over with. But the big thing is they're bringing back Jarrett Allen and he's about to get like a max contract for a center. So he goes from making 3 million next year to basically 30. So I don't think you can eat that Kevin Love salary next year. So I think you're just going to have to try to find a way to make it work.
Yeah, see, you're the finance guy on that one. I don't know the contracts, so yeah, I'm just an ideas man over here.
Uh
Buying out Kevin Love sounded really good in my head. So
Yeah, it was a good idea, but Also, they're paying Torian Prince $15 million next year too.
Oh
So that
God.
doesn't work
All
either.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that sounds
So
horrible.
as far as that, 100% agree. I think Jalen Green or Jalen Suggs is the best fit. See, these aren't very generic, like hot takes, because everyone that I think has ever talked about basketball that has any kind of common sense says that it's these top four players. So, like,
Yeah.
this week it will be kind of boring, but I guarantee you next week will be more interesting when we talk about 5 and 6 because I actually have some hot takes of where those guys should go.
Oh,
But
I love it.
moving forward, we will now talk about the Toronto Raptors. And with the fourth pick, I think that it's a consensus, really easy. Like, I would love Jalen Suggs on this team so much. I love Jalen Suggs
Yep.
on this team so much because Suggs does what Fred VanVleet does for you already. Because Fred VanVleet this year played a lot of point guard, probably better as a shooting guard next to Kyle Lowry because Kyle Lowry was hurt a lot last year. So now you won't feel bad that you're moving on from Kyle Lowry unless you decide, hey, let's bring back Lowry, let's have Suggs, let's have Van Fleet, and let's see if we can get this thing done next year. And I think if you have that team, if you have a team with Suggs, Lowry, Trent Jr., Siakam, Anunoby, Boucher. You have to bring in another center, but all these guys, Fred VanVleet. I think if you have that team as your core team, that's easily a like close to a top four seed in the Eastern Conference. I
Yeah.
think personally,
No.
but I
Oh,
just like
really?
what Suggs
Top
does for
four.
you. Yeah, top four in the Eastern Conference. I think I think that the Rockets really did a great job this year. Like they were going to be like I think they were going to be basically what like
What do you mean, the Raptors or the
the
Rockets?
the Raptors, sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Both ours. I think the Raptors did a really great thing where like they saw that they were basically going to be like the Indiana Pacers where they either make the play in tournament or just miss out on it and they just decided for like once the trade deadline passed like do we want to be stuck there or do we want to be bad? Like I love
Yeah.
teams that commit to after like knowing like do we want to compete to like lose in the first round of the playoffs or do we want to tank to get a good pick? And it really worked out because they jumped 3 spots and went to number 4. So I really
Right.
like what the Raptors did.
No, I agree. I think Lowry's gonna get moved on from. I mean, that's like the writings in the sand, kind of with that one. So, yeah, Suggs is that ideal man to pick up the slack, and he has some star power that, like you've seen Toronto, like the city itself rallies behind stars like that, and they have a lot of good pieces. So, yeah, I think Suggs is like the obvious pick in this one, and like you said, like I feel like top four is pretty set with like who's gonna go. It's just a matter like where they're gonna go, and I feel like the top three is set itself, so I feel like Suggs is just waiting a number four for them with the ideal fit. And I don't know if I'd go as far as to say as Toronto's going to be the fourth seed with that team, but I feel like they do have some competitive juice in them, and they're going to be competitive next season.
Yeah, 100% agree. And also they're a big market. They're
Yeah,
not a team like Cleveland. They'll get free agents. Like
yeah.
people want to play for Toronto.
They
So
have Drake. He's just
they have
there.
Drake. Yes.
Super fan Drake.
Yes, super fan Drake. And they actually people would want to go there. So I think the Rockets, or I think the Raptors, sorry again, the Raptors really hit on something great. They jumped up the spots, and that's always been a thing to me that I'll never be able to understand. I know as an athlete, you never want to lose games on purpose, but if you're a trade deadline team and you're like, we're not making the playoffs, I'm not confident in this roster, why would you continue to be semi competitive when you could be bad and improve your chance at a pick?
Yeah, I know, and it doesn't make any sense. And like that's how you see teams stay in purgatory for the
Like
last like
Detroit for
yes,
forever
like Detroit. Yes, I was about to say that.
and the
15
Kings.
years plus, like, and there's a ton of teams like Magic. You see them in the same spot every year. Like
You know, the
Charlotte
Kings,
Hornets
the
for a while,
Kings.
the Kings.
Oh,
Charlotte's getting better, but yeah, no, yeah, that's why you see these same like poverty franchises stay in this same like blah zone. Like they don't know when to like commit to the rebuild. And yeah, it was good to see a franchise of like Toronto's prominence, like be self realize that like realize that your team's not going to go anywhere. A playing game means nothing, and just commit to the tank. And it works out more times than not.
yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. I will pose one last question to you and then we'll end this episode. If you're the Raptors, do you trade Siakam for Wiseman in the 7th pick?
I saw that. No, I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't do it. I don't know if Wiseman's proven enough. And he was very iffy in spots last year. I think he's a talent, and I think seventh pick could have a lot of value for you. But I feel like Toronto doesn't want. They have a lot of money tied up in like Siakam, Van Fleet. Like they want to try to build a decent team now. I don't know if they want to commit to a full rebuild. And I think if you trade for Wiseman and get that seventh pick, you're doing a full rebuild. So
Yeah,
I mean, it really depends on like the direction the franchise and like the management wants to take them. But personally, I feel like since you have all these players already kind of ready to go, I don't know why you would do that.
I 100% agree. I think that they have a lot of they have so much money tied up into Siakam. Looking at it, the Warriors would have to throw in another contract to make it work. It'd have to be like a Wiggins thing too. So yeah, if you're the Warriors, I would definitely do it in a heartbeat. But like you said, Wiseman looked good at times, but he looked like super inconsistent. And the seventh pick, to be honest, doesn't get you anything like great in this draft. Like it'll get you a player that's like OG Anunoby, like who
Hmm.
will be just a solid player for you. And I think probably worse than OG Anunoby because I think he's a little underrated. But I think it gets you a player like OG Anunoby, where maybe even worse. And it's like we traded Siakam, who's probably a top 25 player in the league for that.
Yeah,
Not worth it to me.
no. Yeah, it just doesn't really make sense, and I don't think Toronto's going to do it because I feel like they have a vision for this team. And yeah, with a difference maker like Jalen Suggs, they could be back in the playoffs next year and see what they do in free agency as well. So yeah, I don't know if they want to commit to this rebuild just yet.
I 100% agree. Masai
Yeah,
Ujiri knows exactly what he's doing. He's well
yeah.
regarded as one of the best GMs in the NBA. Sean, thank you again for joining me for the second week in a row. This will probably be a weekly thing of Sean and I every Thursday or slash Friday, the second episode of the week, talking about the NBA. And I'm real excited. We get closer and closer to the draft and probably the best time to be a Pistons fan moving forward. So thank you to everybody for listening to this episode. You can obviously watch the YouTube version on my YouTube, Loth11, more than go watch it there if you want to see us in person, or you can listen on anywhere you listen to podcasts. So thank you for listening. We'll see you guys later. Sean, thank you.
Thank you,
Peace out.
Jacob. Thanks all for listening. We'll see y'all.